On the sunlit road, leading to what seemed like a peaceful seaside home, Evelyn Moore had no idea she was about to witness the shattering of every illusion she'd ever held about happiness. A perfect marriage. An ideal son-in-law. All of it nothing more than a mask concealing betrayal and deceit. But when the lies began to unravel, a mother would turn her pain into justice, and a daughter would learn to rise again, to save herself from the ruins. The morning breeze in Myrtle was cool and salty, carrying the familiar rhythm of waves breaking against the shore. Evelyn Moore stood by the roadside, gazing at the old wooden beach house nestled between rows of palm trees, the place that held 40 years of her life's memories. Today, she wasn't here to rest. She was here to sell it. "This house is going to sell so fast, Mrs. Moore." Jennifer, the young real estate agent, said brightly. 3 bedrooms, a wraparound deck facing the ocean, and oh my gosh, the light here is perfect for the listing photos. Evelyn gave a faint smile, her hand brushing over the sun-bleached railing. "As long as someone buys it, dear. I'm not looking for someone to love the house, just someone to pay for it." Her words made both Jennifer and Robert, the older agent, chuckle awkwardly. But Evelyn knew better beneath that calm tone was a heart quietly twisting in pain. Here, David, her late husband, had knelt under a sunset and asked her to marry him. Here, Lydia, their daughter, had taken her first steps, laughter echoing through the hallways. Now only debts and memories remained. She searched for the key, her fingers trembling slightly as she fitted into the lock. "The master bedroom has a beautiful view," she murmured, her voice catching. "My husband used to say he wanted to wake up every morning and see the ocean." The door creaked open. She froze. A faint sound just enough to drain the blood from her face. Soft laughter and a deep male voice she knew all too well floated down from upstairs. "Robert," she whispered, "is anyone supposed to be here?" "No, ma'am." He frowned, checking his phone. "No bookings today." Evelyn motioned for silence. Her footsteps were barely audible as she climbed the wooden stairs, each creak of the floorboards echoing like her own heartbeat. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Through the gap, she could see a corner of the old floral quilt, the one her mother had hand-stitched as a wedding gift. And on it, 2 silhouettes. A man's bare back, broad shoulders, neatly styled dark hair. Andrew Carter, her son-in-law. The woman beneath him had golden hair, younger than Lydia by at least 10 years, her manicured fingers tangled in Andrew's hair. "When do you have to go back?" the woman whispered. "Sunday," Andrew replied, pressing kisses down her neck. "Told her there's a conference in Atlanta. Lydia never questions me." The world tilted around Evelyn, but instead of screaming, she stood still for a moment, long enough for her heart to go cold. Then she raised her phone and took a picture. She pushed the door open. "Good morning, Andrew." Both of them jolted upright, as if struck by lightning. Andrew turned, his face shifting from shock to forced composure in seconds. "Mother, what are you doing here? In my house?" Evelyn's tone cut like glass. "That's a good question, Andrew." The young woman clutched the blanket to her chest. 2 didn't know anyone was here. "Sit down, Sophie Lane, isn't it?" Evelyn said sharply. "I know you. Lydia mentioned you, the new marketing coordinator at her husband's firm." Sophie froze. Andrew threw on his shirt, scrambling to regain his usual charm. "You're misunderstanding this. It's not." "Not what it looks like?" Evelyn interrupted, her eyes cold and steady. "Interesting, because it looks exactly like 2 people having an affair in my marital bed." Andrew inhaled deeply, then smiled that smug, crooked smile she'd always distrusted. "You can tell Lydia whatever you want. She won't believe you. She's too scared to leave me, you know that. She needs me." The air in the room thickened. Evelyn took a step forward, her gaze locked on him. "You really think my daughter will stay afraid of you forever?" "Think?" Andrew sneered. "No, Mrs. Moore. I know she will. And if you're smart, you'll stay quiet too." Evelyn gave a short, bitter laugh, not out of amusement, but because she had finally reached her limit. She unlocked her phone, the glow of the screen illuminating his arrogant face. "You're right. I know I am," he said smugly, lifting his chin. "I won't tell Lydia," Evelyn said softly. "But I'll call someone who can make you regret every word you just said." She pressed a button. A calm, deep voice answered. Mark Russo speaking. "Hello, Mark," Evelyn said evenly, each syllable deliberate. "I think it's time you take another look into the case of Andrew Carter." Andrew's face drained of color. "Who?" "Someone who used to be a cop," Evelyn said quietly, "and doesn't take kindly to men who betray their own family." She stepped back, her voice steady and cold. "You have 10 minutes to get out, Andrew. Before the man I just called gets here." The door slammed behind her. Outside, the waves crashed against the shore, their rhythm matching her heartbeat, calm, relentless, unshakable. That day, Evelyn Moore knew one thing for certain. The real storm had only just begun. That afternoon, as the Myrtle Beach sun tilted toward the sea, Evelyn Moore sat by the window with a cooling cup of tea in her hands. The house was utterly silent, only the wind threading through the wooden porch and the roar inside a mother's chest who had just witnessed betrayal with her own eyes. She did not cry. She did not scream. She simply opened her contacts and dialed a familiar number. Mark Russo speaking, a deep, decisive voice. "Mark, I need to see you. It's about Andrew Carter." A pause. Then Mark's voice dropped low. "I figured this day would come. Meet me at the Harbor Cafe, 7 p.m. The cafe's warm lights reflected tiredly in Evelyn's eyes. Mark arrived on time, a plain shirt, the gait of a man who'd once worn a badge but still carried its hard edges. "You don't look well, Ev. How would you look if you saw your son-in-law naked in the bed of your late husband?" She sipped her tea, forcing her voice steady. Mark exhaled and leaned back. "I wanted to tell you before, but I didn't have airtight proof. Andrew's already on my radar." "On the radar?" Evelyn arched a brow. "Prestige Capital, his firm. We suspect embezzlement. The shortfall's over $2 million across 3 years." The air thickened. Evelyn set her cup down. The soft clink sounded like thunder in her chest. "You're saying he's a financial criminal?" "And worse, a classic manipulator," Mark said slowly and clearly. "He's made Lydia entirely dependent financially, emotionally, everything. She doesn't know about the missing money, Ev." "But if this breaks, she's going to get swept up." Evelyn stared out the window as rain began to drum against the glass. "She's suffered enough. I won't let him ruin my daughter's life any further. What do you want to do?" "Help you. I'll give you everything I have, photos, messages, everything." Mark nodded once. "We'll be careful. If Andrew gets suspicious, he'll scrub the trail." They sat for hours, combing through details each business trip, every expensive gift Lydia had never known the source of. Mark spread a relationship map of Prestige Capital across the table. He routes money through fake accounts. Some goes to shell companies, some funds his personal lifestyle. Evelyn pressed her lips together. "Including those business trips to my house." "Exactly. Your house became a rendezvous spot, a place no one would suspect, because it's in your name." Evelyn let out a dry laugh. "I thought this house was where David proposed. Turns out it was where that bastard betrayed my daughter." Mark leaned in, looking straight into her eyes. "Ev, I need you lucid. This is dangerous. If Andrew realizes what you're doing, he'll do anything to shut you up." "Mark, I sat through 3 of David's heart surgeries and watched him fade in a hospital bed. I'm not afraid anymore. I just want to end this cleanly and precisely." The mood softened as Mark tried to ease the tension. "You still drink Earl Grey, don't you? Last time I saw you with it was at David's funeral." "Because it's bitter," Evelyn said. "Like life, but there's fragrance if you breathe deep enough." They shared a small, shaky laugh, the kind that wobbles in the rain. Mark pushed a thin file across the table. These are Andrew's fake financial reports. But I need incontrovertible proof photos, data he can't deny. Evelyn opened her phone and scrolled through the pictures she'd taken that morning. Andrew, the blonde woman, the tangled quilt. Is that enough? Mark glanced and nodded. More than enough. But I need you to do one more thing. Tell me. Approach Lydia. Ask about finances, about the accounts her husband controls. Small, casual questions. Every tiny detail could be a key. Evelyn sighed, sadness crossing her face. He's brainwashed her, Mark. She'll think I'm slandering her husband. That's fine. We don't need her to believe you. We just need him to get careless. Near 10 o'clock, they left the cafe. Outside, the rain had eased. Streetlights cast a steady glow on Evelyn's resolved face. You know, Mark, she said softly, I used to think revenge was a dark thing. But some people only understand justice when their misdeeds crush them. I don't call it revenge, Ev, Mark replied. I call it saving someone. Evelyn looked out toward the ocean, swallowed by night. I'm not only saving Lydia, I'm saving the part of myself that stayed quiet for too long. That night, back at home, Evelyn sat at her computer and created a new folder. Case 734. She saved every photo, every note, every tiny detail about Andrew Carter. When she hit the final save, she whispered, You turned my house into your evidence, Andrew. I'll turn it into the place where you begin to fall. The waves murmured offshore. She opened the window. The old curtains billowed in the breeze. Evelyn closed her eyes and thought she could hear David's voice from years past. You're stronger than you think, Ev. She smiled faintly and answered the silence. This time, you'll see me fight to the end. Late that afternoon, Evelyn Moore drove to Charleston, where her daughter, Lydia Carter, lived in a beautiful house with the man the world believed to be her perfect husband. The golden light of sunset stretched across the tree-lined street, reflecting off the freshly painted gate. Everything looked immaculate, elegant, but to Evelyn, it felt more like a mask than a home. She parked, took a deep breath, and adjusted the scarf around her neck. When the door opened, Lydia appeared thinner than before, her hair loosely pinned, her face weary despite the faint touch of lipstick. Mom, I didn't expect you. Why didn't you call first? I was afraid if I called, you'd say you were busy. I saw the lights on, so I stopped by. Lydia smiled the same familiar smile, only now it lacked warmth. I was just cleaning up a bit. Michael's on a business trip. He'll be gone a few days. Evelyn nodded, concealing the sharp edge in her gaze. Business trip. That phrase carried a new, heavy meaning. She stepped inside. The living room was spotless, staged to perfection, like a photograph in a magazine. Yet beneath that perfect lighting, something felt hollow. Would you like something to drink, Mom? I just made chamomile tea. Chamomile tea? I remember when you only drank strong black coffee. Lydia laughed softly, embarrassed. I've cut back. Michael says too much coffee keeps women up at night, makes them irritable. Are you sleeping better now? I guess so. The vague reply made Evelyn exhale quietly. She looked around, no paintings on the walls. Lydia used to fill every room with her art. The living room, the kitchen, even the hallway. Now the white walls made the house feel more like a lifeless showroom. You don't paint anymore? Lydia froze, then smiled weakly. I've been busy, Mom. Mostly housework. Events with Michael. Meeting clients. He says painting should just stay a hobby. Just a hobby? Evelyn repeated, her tone soft but deliberate. Don't take it the wrong way. I'm happy. Just no time for it anymore. A long silence followed. The ticking clock echoed, each beat tapping against Evelyn's heart. She set her teacup down gently. Happiness doesn't need much explaining. But if you have to keep explaining it, maybe it's more fragile than you think. You're reading too much into it, Lydia said, her voice tinged with mild defensiveness. Michael's good to me. He takes care of everything. I just have to live peacefully. And give up being yourself in exchange? Evelyn asked quietly. Lydia stood up, avoiding her mother's eyes. Mom, I don't want to talk about this. Why not? Because if you do, you'll have to face what you've been pretending not to see? Evelyn's tone wasn't loud, but it cut deep, every word deliberate. Lydia stayed silent for a long moment, then whispered, I just don't want to make things messy. Every marriage has its hard times. You told me that once. Yes, Evelyn said softly, but I also told you never let hard times become normal. If every day feels like surviving instead of living, that's not marriage anymore, sweetheart. Lydia gave a faint laugh, pouring more tea. You sound like a movie script, Mom. Real life isn't that simple. You don't need everything, Lydia. You just need yourself. I want to see that girl again, the one who left her art school in Florence to chase the light of a sunrise on canvas. Lydia's eyes flickered with something sorrow, maybe. That was when I was young. Now, I have a family. Responsibilities. Responsibilities aren't chains, dear. They're reasons to choose the right partner to share the weight with. But if you're carrying it all alone, that's not responsibility, that's a burden. Lydia didn't answer. She gazed toward the window, where the late sun stretched across the sky. Michael's not a bad man, Mom. He just wants everything to be perfect. And you're part of that perfection? Maybe. Lydia smiled faintly. I'm used to it. Evelyn reached out, gently taking her daughter's cold hands. No one's meant to get used to silence, Lydia. You're just living inside the frame someone else built for you. A single tear rolled down Lydia's cheek, but she quickly wiped it away, forcing a smile. You never change, Mom. You always say things that make people think for a week. And you? Evelyn smiled tenderly. Do you still have your paint palette? In the garage, probably covered in dust. Good. Don't throw it away. Because one day, when you're ready, I want to see that ocean blue you used for your first light painting again. They fell silent. Outside, the last rays of sunlight faded behind the roof tiles. Evelyn stood, smoothing her daughter's hair like she used to when Lydia was little. I'll go now. Take care of yourself. Mom, don't worry about me. I'm fine. I know. You're always fine, until you stop being yourself. Evelyn smiled soft, but full of quiet ache. She stepped toward the door, pausing briefly before leaving. Oh, when Michael gets back, tell him I said hello. Lydia's voice trembled slightly. Okay, I will. The door closed. Inside, Lydia stared at her steaming cup of tea, feeling hollow. Outside, Evelyn stood beside her car, eyes fixed on the glowing house, a golden cage sealed shut. She knew the moment hadn't come yet. Because before her daughter could face the truth, Evelyn first had to make her believe she deserved to be free. Charleston, in the early morning, still held the quiet grace of an old painting, cobblestone streets glistening with last night's rain, half-open wooden shutters, and the rich scent of roasted coffee drifting from the small cafes along the road. Evelyn sat in a corner of the courtroom cafe, facing the city courthouse. She had chosen a table by the window, absently turning her cappuccino cup between her hands. The warmth seeped into her fingers, softening the tension that had lived there for days. At exactly 8:15, Mark Russo walked in. The same composed presence. Crisp white shirt, charcoal gray coat, solid frame, eyes alert, the kind that always seemed to see more than they should. Ev, he greeted with a nod, his voice rough but steady. Mark, she replied with a faint smile. Right on time, as always. Occupational habit, he said. The one being watched arrives early. The one watching arrives exactly on time. Evelyn chuckled softly. So, which one am I today? Both, Mark replied, taking the seat across from her. You're the observer, and the observed. He placed a thin file on the table, a few grainy photos tucked inside. Andrew Carter, real name, Andrew Miller. He changed it after marrying Lydia. Embezzlement at Prestige Capital isn't the only thing. We traced him to 2 shell companies in Florida and Delaware, both tied to laundering money for a private investment fund. Evelyn looked down at the photos. Andrew, stepping out of an upscale restaurant, shaking hands with a man in a black suit and a gold watch. "You're certain?" "Certain," Mark said. "But we need fresh evidence to make it stick. Without it, all this is just suspicion." Evelyn leaned back in her chair, eyes drifting toward the window. Outside, the drizzle began again, raindrops scattering light like broken glass. "What do you need from me, Mark?" "One thing. Proof he's still active. You want me to follow him?" "No." He shook his head. "I want him to believe you're still the same helpless woman he once dismissed." Evelyn gave a thin smile, sharp as the edge of a blade. "For the first time in my life, being underestimated might actually work in my favor." "I'm serious, Ev," Mark said, lowering his voice. "If he suspects anything, you could be in danger. Andrew's not just a con artist, he's the kind of man who eliminates obstacles." Evelyn was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke slowly, every word firm. "Mark, I've already watched the man I love die without being able to save him. I've watched my daughter trapped in a marriage that suffocates her. You think fear has any power left over me?" "It's not about fear," Mark said softly. "It's because I don't want you to be a victim anymore. Then stop thinking of me as one." Evelyn's smile was calm, unyielding. "I'm not the victim in this story, Mark. I'm the one rewriting it." For a while, the only sound between them was the spoon stirring coffee. Then Mark reached into his bag and placed a small device on the table, something that looked like a brooch. A micro recorder. "If you meet him, clip it to your lapel. Everything will transmit straight to the surveillance team. Don't push for details, just get him talking." Evelyn turned the small object in her hand, as if it weighed far more than it should. "And if he finds it? Then we step in. But let's hope we don't have to." "I hope so too." She studied the device for a long moment before setting it down gently. "Ever think about how this is the most dangerous game we'll ever play, and yet, somehow, the fairest?" Mark arched a brow. "Meaning? Using a villain's arrogance as his own undoing." "Andrew's always seen me as the fragile mother, the worried widow." "Fine. Let's show him what a fragile mother can do when she stops playing by the rules." Mark chuckled softly, though concern still lingered behind his eyes. "Ev, you've got the instincts of an undercover agent. I'm starting to feel bad for Andrew." "Bad for him?" Evelyn tilted her head, smirking faintly. "No, Mark. You should be worried for me." A moment later, their conversation turned to details. Mark opened his laptop and pulled up a financial diagram. "Here. These transactions are masked as consulting fees. Some funds loop back to Prestige Capital. The rest go through a company registered under his wife's name." "You mean Lydia?" "Exactly. But she doesn't know. Every document signed through power of attorney. It's airtight enough that, on a surface-level audit, she'd look complicit." Evelyn's fists clenched so tight her nails dug into her palms. "No, I won't let that happen." "I know," Mark said quietly. "You're the only one who can make him slip." "How?" "When he thinks you've forgiven him." Evelyn's gaze lifted, bright and cold all at once. "You want me to reach out to him?" "Yes. Tell him you want peace for Lydia's sake. Say you just want the family to heal. Make him feel safe again and he'll talk." Evelyn gave a dry laugh. "Never thought I'd have to fake weakness to get justice." "Sometimes," Mark replied, "the strongest thing you can do is hide your strength." The rain outside had stopped. A pale streak of sunlight slipped through the window, falling across the wooden table. Evelyn lifted her cup, her voice quiet but firm. "Do you still believe in justice, Mark? I believe in evidence. And I believe in karma." She smiled faintly. Different words, same direction. Mark stood, adjusting his coat. When you start, remember every word he says, every gesture, can hold up in court. Don't let emotions cloud it. Don't worry. I don't have feelings for him anymore. Only patience. Mark's eyes softened, a mix of admiration and unease. Ev, if David were still here, he'd be proud of you. Evelyn looked up, her voice trembling just slightly. David once told me sometimes, to protect the ones you love, you have to walk straight into the place you fear most. When Mark left, Evelyn remained seated, her face half lit by the morning sun streaming through the cafe window. She took out her phone, scrolled through her contacts, and stopped on Andrew Carter. Her thumb hovered for a second, then pressed call. Hello, mother-in-law. His familiar voice came through confident, with that subtle tone of mockery. Hello, Andrew, Evelyn said softly, her voice velvet smooth yet carrying a hidden blade. I think it's time we talked. About the family. Oh? I'm always available. Where? The house in Myrtle. Tomorrow afternoon. You sure about that? Sure. I want to clear up a few misunderstandings. When the call ended, Evelyn leaned back in her chair and exhaled slowly. In her eyes, there was no fear left, only the quiet resolve of someone who had chosen a path she couldn't turn back from. The sound fades, the whisper of wind through the street, the slow pulse of a heartbeat, and a final line part vow, part prophecy. He thinks I'm the prey. But you know what, Mark? Sometimes the prey learns to hunt. That afternoon, Evelyn Moore's kitchen bustled with the clatter of pots and pans, the smell of butter and garlic spreading through the room. She rested her hand on a birthday card, the handwriting carefully curved. Happy birthday, Lydia. Love you, always. That daughter, the one who once dreamed of painting, who used to be as free as the wind now wore the look of a tired woman. But tonight, Evelyn wanted everything to feel cheerful, normal, at least on the surface. Her phone buzzed. Mark Russo. Everything set? Evelyn. Set. The recorder is hidden in the picture frame near the dining table. What about you? Mark. I'm right outside in the car, don't worry. When he says the word deal, I'll have it on record. Be careful, Ev. Evelyn, with a thin smile. Careful is my line of work. You forgot? She hung up and stood before the mirror. The woman staring back was still a 64-year-old widow with silver in her hair, but the eyes were different, sharp, composed, and holding the quiet expectancy of someone awaiting a performance. 8 o'clock. Warm light from the dining room spread over a small table. Red wine, a birthday cake, and a bouquet of pale lavender, the flower Lydia had loved since childhood. Lydia, coming in, smiling wearily. Mom, I told you not to go to all this trouble. Evelyn, I know, but you're my joy. At least I still get to cook for someone. Lydia, if Andrew heard that, he'd be jealous. Evelyn, shrugging. Andrew never eats what I cook anyway. They both laughed lightly, but the sound felt strained, as if trying to push away something heavy hanging in the air. And then the doorbell rang. Evelyn glanced at her daughter. Must be our special guest. Special guest? I invited Andrew. It's your birthday, after all. The family should be together. A flicker of confusion crossed Lydia's face, but she nodded. The door opened. Andrew stepped in gray suit, a politely measured smile, the kind of smile that used to convince people he was a decent man. Andrew, hello, Mom. Hey, honey. Been a while, hasn't it? It has. You're right on time. Dinner's still hot. Andrew, cheerful. You know I never pass up your lasagna. His voice was smooth, natural, as if nothing had ever happened. But Evelyn could hear the layers of deceit beneath every word. When the wine glasses were full, the conversation drifted the way counterfeit peace does. Lydia. Andrew says he might get promoted, Mom. Evelyn, smiling. Oh, that's wonderful. Good for you, Andrew. Andrew, modest on cue. It's just the projects I've been on. Profits have been strong the last few quarters, but honestly, it's a lot of pressure. Evelyn lightly. Good job, beautiful wife. Plenty of money. If that's pressure, I suppose everyone would like a little. Andrew, dry chuckle. The problem is people only see the outside, Mom. They don't know what's inside. Evelyn. Right. The inside is the scariest part often, the thing we never expect. The line made Andrew pause. For a beat, he studied Evelyn, then pasted on his social smile again. You're as sharp as ever. Midway through the meal, Evelyn set her glass down and let her voice soften, just enough. I hate to bring this up on a happy day, but I probably should. Lydia. What is it, Mom? Evelyn, I'm thinking of selling the house in Myrtle Beach. No point keeping it, and your father's medical bills are still there. The room thinned with quiet. Lydia looked at her mother, worried. Mom, are things that bad? Why didn't you tell me? Evelyn, gently. I didn't want to burden you. Didn't want anyone's pity. Andrew put his glass down, mixing a little professional concern into his tone. Actually, I can help. I know a few real estate investors. They move quickly, clean paperwork, and thing is, the offer's a bit under market. Evelyn watched him, her gaze seemingly casual yet cutting through him. How far under? Maybe around 60% of market value. But you'd have the money by next week. That's so? Evelyn sighed softly, her shoulders loosening like someone at the end of her rope. Maybe that's what I should do. After all, what's left to hold on to? Out in the car, Mark heard everything through the covert earpiece. He logged every word, every inflection. Over the radio, his voice came low. He's biting, Ev. Stay steady. Don't tip your hand. Inside, Lydia fretted. Mom, are you sure? Myrtle is where Dad used to. I know, but now it's only a wait. Andrew slipping in, sweet as syrup. Mom, sometimes you have to be practical. Feelings don't pay the bills. Evelyn smiled faintly, resting her fingers on the rim of her glass. Feelings don't pay the bills, but they can buy back some peace. It's just, peace doesn't have a price tag, does it? Andrew laughed, leaning back a little. You really have a way with words. But don't worry, I'll handle everything. I've got people who can process the paperwork. All you need to do is sign. Thank you, Andrew, Evelyn said softly, letting a hint of grateful tremor color her voice. I know you always look out for the family. Lydia smiled, unaware that every word Andrew spoke was being recorded. Outside, Mark whispered into the mic. The sign the papers line confirms unlicensed brokering. Perfect, Ev. We just need him to reference the transaction one more time. Dinner drifted on with light small talk. Evelyn gently steering. Andrew, the Myrtle place has a few valuable items. The buyers won't mind, will they? No problem. They're after the land. As for the items, they can liquidate them fast. There are companies that wash antiques legitimately. The word wash slipped out. Evelyn only tilted her head a hair. In the car, Mark pressed his lips together and tapped the steering wheel the signal. He'd just heard Andrew admit to knowing a laundering channel. Evelyn feigning confusion. Wash? Do you mean that's really legal? Andrew, quick laugh. Oh, of course. I know people in the system, everything above board. Don't worry. Evelyn, voice faintly unsteady as if clutching at hope. You're so capable. If your father were alive, he'd be proud. Andrew, I'm just trying to help. Family is everything. Lydia, moved, squeezed her husband's hand. Thank you. You always think of Mom first. Evelyn watched them, her chest pulling tight, but her smile stayed gentle. Andrew's always considerate. The narration dips, low and inward Evelyn's unspoken thought. If only you knew, Lydia, this considerate man is pricing our home with the currency of our trust. The evening closed on the cake. Evelyn rose to place the candles. Warm light played across all three faces, almost peaceful tableau with an undertow like a riptide. Evelyn, make a wish, sweetheart. Lydia, eyes closed. I wish things will get better. Evelyn's gaze softened, blurring at the edges. They will, my love. Everything will come to light. As Andrew left, he turned, voice friendly. Just have the paperwork ready, Mom. I'll send someone to look at the lot. We'll wrap it up quick. I trust you, Evelyn said evenly, lightly. The door closed. Outside, Mark stepped in and set the earpiece on the table. We've got enough. His voice, the confirmations, even the asset, washing. This is a key piece of the puzzle. Evelyn nodded, her tone low but unwavering. Not yet, Mark. We've only heard him lie. I want to hear him confident in his lie. Ev. I know, but this time, he's going to dig his own grave. Evelyn turned back to the table, where a few candles had already gone dark. She looked at them for a moment, then blew softly. The smoke rose thin and cool like the first breath of a plan just set in motion. The next morning, Charleston wore a pale gray. The sky held back its rain, but it felt heavy like the moment when someone knows something terrible is about to happen, and all that's left is the instant it finally breaks. Evelyn drove her old sedan, fingers resting lightly on the steering wheel. Every turn made her heart pound harder. On the passenger seat lay a thick envelope containing the house sale contract Mark had prepared. In the rearview mirror, she caught her own, eyes strangely calm. If this is the only way to save my daughter, then even if I have to walk into a tiger's den, I'll go. The Prestige Capitol building came into view, a gleaming block of glass, cold and polished, like Andrew himself. Evelyn pulled up at the entrance, straightened her coat, and went in. She smiled at the receptionist, voice gentle but carrying a quiet certainty. I have an appointment with Mr. Carter. He told me to come sign at 10. Of course, ma'am. 14th floor. The elevator carried her up, each floor ticking past like a heartbeat. When the doors slid open, Andrew was already waiting in the hall, hands in his pockets, wearing that familiar, courteous smile. Andrew, you made it. Coffee or tea? Evelyn, faint smile. Tea. My heart can't take coffee today. Andrew, chuckling. Don't say that. This is a good thing, finally getting that house sold. Evelyn stepped into the office. Everything radiated wealth, from the abstract painting on the wall to the glossy Italian leather chair. But what caught her eye was the security camera mounted in the ceiling corner, pointed straight at Andrew's desk. A soft, incisive narrator's thread slips in. Counterfeit beauty loves to be seen, and today he'll be betrayed by his own lens. Andrew set a thick stack of papers on the desk. Here's the contract. The buyer is a partner of mine, J&M Development. Fast payment, no fuss. The price is $240,000. Evelyn feigned a frown. That's more than $150,000 under market, Andrew. I don't want to take such a loss. Andrew soothing, a touch of coaxing. Mom, they're paying quick, no inspections, no agents. Who does that these days? Think of it as selling low in exchange for peace of mind. Peace of mind, Evelyn repeated, as if turning the phrase over. Sounds familiar. You've said that to Lydia too, haven't you? Andrew, a flicker of alarm. What was that? Evelyn with a kindly smile. Nothing. I'm old. I forget things. The words seemed harmless, but her eyes were sharp as a blade. For a heartbeat, Andrew's composure slipped. Evelyn, can you show me where the funds are coming from? I just want to be sure everything's legal. Andrew, smirking. Of course. What kind of businessman do you think I am? He opened his laptop and swiveled the screen toward her. What he didn't realize was that Evelyn had just activated the recorder hidden in her handbag. Andrew, Hera funds transfer directly from a subsidiary investment pool. An internal account, no intermediaries, So you don't have to worry, Evelyn. A company account? Andrew, careless. Yeah, a corporate fund. Don't tell anyone. Technically it's a little off, but no one checks. Just sign, and it's done in 3 days. The voiceover deepens, tightens. And it's in that moment arrogance made him forget. Every word he spoke, every click of his mouse was being heard from across the street. In the car opposite, Mark sat with 2 federal agents, earpieces snug. Mark, there it is. He just confirmed using company funds. Get ready to move. Agent, wait for Miss Moore's signature cue. Once he takes the signature, we go. Mark raised his binoculars. Through the 14th floor glass, he saw Evelyn lean in with a pen. She smiled lightly, looking every inch the gentle mother about to place her trust, and the woman tightening a noose around the neck of the man who'd betrayed her daughter. Evelyn, Andrew, I need to ask you honestly, who are you doing this for? For me or for yourself? Andrew leaning back, grinning. Both. I help you, you help me. Win-win. Evelyn, help you? How? Andrew, broker's fee, that's all. 10% perfectly legal. No one checks little deals like this anyway. Evelyn, voice slowing. 10%. On a deal where you use company money to help your mother-in-law? Andrew, missing the trap. Don't put it like that. It's just an internal arrangement. Everyone does it. She nodded, serene. You always have your own logic for what's wrong. That's called being smart, Mom. No, Andrew. That's called delusion. She touched pen to paper. The instant the ink met the page, a soft click sounded at the office door. It swung open. 2 agents in suits stepped in, Mark right behind them. Mark, Andrew Carter, you're under arrest for financial fraud, misappropriation of investment funds, and conspiracy to launder money. Andrew vaulting to his feet. What the? What is this? Mark. We have recordings and corroborated evidence. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used in court. He glanced around, face bleaching out, voice cracking. No, no way. She set me up. That old... Mark moved closer, voice calm and ice cold. Yes, she set you up. Not for money, for justice. Evelyn rose, smoothing her coat, her tone still even. Andrew, I used to think you were only bad at marriage. Turns out you're bad at crime, too. Andrew, you'll pay for this. Evelyn head tilted, a tranquil smile. No, because this isn't your game anymore. The officers cuffed him. Andrew, you'll regret this. Lydia will never forgive you. Evelyn, clear as glass. You don't need to worry about Lydia, because for the first time in years, she's going to be free. As the elevator doors slid shut, Mark turned to Evelyn. Ev, you okay? Okay, she exhaled, long and light. I didn't think I'd live to see him marched out of the very place he loved to brag about. You did great. No, I did what a mother has to do. Mark smiled, resting a hand on her shoulder. You know, if there were an award for Off-Book Operative of the Year, I'd nominate you first. Evelyn, so long as there isn't a next assignment. Mark, there won't be. Unless, Evelyn, unless it's about Lydia. For my daughter, I'm always ready. They stepped out of the building together. Outside, the sky had brightened. Sunlight pierced the cloud cover, flashing across the tower's glass light that no longer held any power over Evelyn. That afternoon, Charleston was draped in a thin, silvery rain, the kind that wasn't loud, just enough to wrap the city in a quiet melancholy. Evelyn sat in the living room, both hands clasped around a cup of tea growing cold. On the table lay a folder of evidence, photographs, recordings, and a signed complaint. She looked at it for a long time, then exhaled softly. Everything's about to end, but for her, it's only beginning. The door opened. Lydia came in hair damp, coat speckled with rain, her face worn and strangely pale. "Lydia! Mom! You said it was urgent. What's going on? I still have to meet Andrew's lawyer at the station." Evelyn calmly, "You don't need to." Lydia, "What do you mean?" "Andrew was arrested this morning. I have to." Evelyn, cutting her off, "That's exactly why you need to sit down." Her voice wasn't raised, not even trembling, but there was something in Ida gravity that made Lydia stop. She sat down opposite her mother, fingers lacing together without realizing it. "Lydia." "Mom, you're hiding something, aren't you?" Evelyn didn't answer. She opened the envelope on the table and pulled out a sheet of paper. "Evelyn, do you know about the sale of the house in Myrtle?" Lydia, confused. "Andrew mentioned it. He said you needed money and he was helping you." Evelyn, "Yes, helping with stolen money." The words hit the air like a heavy stone, breaking the stillness apart. Lydia blinked, disbelief clouding her eyes. "Lydia, Mom, what are you talking about?" Evelyn setting the folder on the table. "Andrew used company accounts for the transaction. I have the recordings, the photos, everything. And it wasn't just embezzlement, Lydia. He also—" Lydia, interrupting, trembling. "Also what?" Evelyn, "He was seeing someone else. I'm sorry." Lydia stepped back, as if she'd just been slapped. For a moment, silence. Only the sound of rain, slow and heavy. Lydia, a fragile laugh, voice breaking. No, that's not true. He wouldn't. He's not like that. He's just misunderstood." "Evelyn, I wish he were." Lydia shouting, "You've always hated him. You just want to tear us apart." He told me you'd do anything to make me leave him." Evelyn didn't react. She only looked at her daughter, her gaze, steady, sorrowful, deep, as if she'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. She stood, walked to the desk, and took out a small USB drive. "Evelyn, if I'm wrong, watch this. Then you can hate me." She plugged it into the laptop. The screen lit up. Then came the voice, Andrew's voice, smooth and confident, as it always was when he lied. "Andrew, from the recording. She'll never find out. She trusts me completely." "Fine. Let her sign the authorization. If there's an audit, she's the one they'll blame." Lydia froze. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her shoulders trembled. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Lydia, whispering, He was going to let me take the fall?" Evelyn nodded, her voice catching but still firm. "Evelyn, yes, he planned it that way. I only stopped him when the police stepped in. 1 second, 2. Then Lydia broke. She cried raw, wrenching sobs that filled the room. Lydia, how could I be so stupid, Mom? I gave up everything for him. I trusted him, defended him, I even lost myself because of him." Evelyn, pulling her close. "Shh, you're not stupid, Lydia. You just loved the wrong man." Lydia, through tears. "I hate him. I hate myself for letting him turn me into this." Evelyn stroked her daughter's hair, her hands trembling but steady in purpose. "Evelyn, you're not weak. You just forgot your strength. He made you believe you needed him to survive. But do you know something? The moment you choose to stand up, you're already stronger than he'll ever be." Lydia lifted her head. Tears still glistened, but her gaze had changed, fierce, clear, resolute. "Lydia, Mom, I want a divorce. I won't let him destroy me anymore." "Evelyn, I've already contacted attorney Naomi Layton. She'll help. But Lydia, the police need your cooperation. You could be a key witness. They'll protect you." Lydia, hesitant. "A witness?" Evelyn, "Yes. Only you can do it. They need your testimony to lock him away for good." Lydia was quiet. Then softly, almost to herself. "Lydia, He always said no one would dare stand against him. This time, I'll prove him wrong." Evelyn smiled, part pride, part ache. She poured a fresh cup of tea and set it before her daughter. "Evelyn, drink. You'll need to stay clear-headed. Justice doesn't only need evidence, it needs courage." Lydia, taking a sip, voice shaking. "Mom, if this all goes public, everyone will know. I'm scared." Evelyn, taking her hand. "It's okay to be scared. Letting fear rule you, that's the real loss. You don't live to please the world, Lydia. You live to be free." Lydia looked up at her mother, eyes rimmed red. "Lydia, do you ever regret fighting for me?" Evelyn, smiling softly. "Never. Because out of all the battles I've fought in my life, you're the only reason I never surrendered." The narration deepens, rich and reflective, like Evelyn's inner voice threading through the silence. Some mothers have to learn to love their children with strength, not with tears. Because sometimes tears only make them weaker. And tonight, as Lydia faces her pain head on, I know the healing has begun. Later that evening, Lydia stood by the window, watching the rain trace lines down the glass. Her phone buzzed Andrew's number. She hesitated, then answered. Andrew hurried, panicked. "Lydia, you have to help me. They're framing me. Everything I did was for us. Can't you see that?" Lydia, quietly. "For us or for you? Don't turn your back on me. I know your mother's behind this. You have to testify for me." Lydia, steady. "You were right about one thing. Andrew, me mother, is behind it. But this time, I'm standing with her." Andrew, screaming, "You're betraying me?" Lydia, calmly, "No, Andrew, I'm just done betraying myself." She hung up. The click was sharp, final, but inside her, it was the sound of freedom. Evelyn walked in, resting a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Evelyn, you're ready now." Lydia, softly, "Yes. This time, I'll tell everything. No one's writing my story for me anymore." Together, they looked out the window where the rain had thinned, and the city lights shimmered on the wet pavement like droplets of hope. Evelyn, whispering, "The storm has passed, Lydia, and you are the dawn." That morning, the Charleston courtroom was packed. Sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows, casting long beams across the polished wooden floor, where every step, every breath, seemed to carry the weight of truth. Lydia Moore sat in the front row. She wore a simple white blouse, no jewelry, no makeup, only calm, steady eyes, and the faint scar of a past she'd left behind. Behind her, Evelyn sat quietly, fingers intertwined, watching her daughter, a gaze filled with both pride and worry. Across the aisle, Andrew Carter sat with his hands cuffed. He still carried himself like a man accustomed to power, chin lifted, a faint smile on his lips, eyes full of arrogance. Yet in the daylight, that confidence looked worn and cracked. "Judge, call the witness Lydia Moore." The words echoed through the room, breaking the silence. Lydia stood and walked toward the stand. Each step was deliberate, the steps of a woman who was no longer led, blinded, or controlled. She placed her hand on the Bible, her voice clear, soft, but unwavering. "I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth." The prosecutor gave a small nod and began. Prosecutor, "Miss Moore, please tell the court what is your relationship to the defendant, Andrew Carter." Lydia, steady. "I'm his ex-wife." Behind her, Andrew smirked a mocking, familiar smile. Lydia saw it, but for the first time, it had no power over her. Prosecutor, are you aware that the defendant is being charged with embezzlement, money laundering, and attempting to frame you for his crimes? Lydia, I am now. Before, I only knew that I loved him, and I trusted him. A small murmur rippled through the courtroom. Lydia didn't look at anyone. Her eyes stayed forward. Prosecutor, can you tell the court when you realized what the defendant had done? Lydia, when my mother showed me the evidence. When I heard his voice in the recording, and when I read the messages he sent to someone else saying, I was just a cover to make dirty money look clean. Her voice didn't shake. There was no hatred in it, only exhaustion, and the quiet sorrow of someone who had once believed too deeply. Then came the defense attorney, a composed, middle-aged man whose words were sharp, every question aimed to cut. Defense attorney, Miss Moore, is it true that you managed the household finances? Yes. Defense attorney, and you signed documents related to joint accounts and investments? Lydia, yes, because I trusted my husband. Defense attorney, so by your own admission you participated in those transactions? A long silence. The gallery began to whisper. Evelyn gripped her hands tight, heart clenching, but Lydia only smiled, calm and composed. Lydia, trusting your husband isn't a crime. Defense attorney, excuse me? Lydia, trusting the person you love isn't a crime, but exploiting that trust that is the crime. The courtroom fell silent. The judge gave a small, approving nod, as if to mark the weight of her words. The prosecutor smiled slightly, then gestured toward the next witness. Prosecutor, the court calls Robert Hayes, the defendant's former colleague. A thin, nervous man stepped up to the stand. Prosecutor, Mr. Hayes, please repeat your previous statement for the record. Hayes, uneasy. I worked with Andrew at Prestige Capital. Once, I overheard him telling another associate that if things ever blew up, he'd make sure his wife took the blame. Said, quote, she'll sign whatever I tell her, and the legal mess will fall on her. Gasps rippled through the audience. Andrew's lawyer sprang to his feet. Defense attorney, objection! Hearsay, no recorded proof, only verbal testimony. Prosecutor, we have internal company emails from the defendant confirming the same, Your Honor. The documents were submitted. The judge scanned them briefly and struck his gavel once. Judge, objection overruled. Andrew sat motionless. His confident smile was gone. His face stiffened, eyes wide, the fear in them, not of prison, but of being utterly exposed. Lydia looked at him not with vengeance, but with farewell. Her inner voice, quiet but firm, rose within the narrative. You once said no one could make you kneel. But justice doesn't need anyone to kneel, it only asks that truth stand tall. At the end of the hearing, the judge delivered the verdict. Judge, defendant Andrew Carter is hereby sentenced to 12 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $2.3 million to the victims, including both organizations and individuals affected by his fraudulent actions. The court also acknowledges the courage and truthful testimony of witness Lydia Moore, whose cooperation helped bring this case to light. The gavel struck 3 times firm, final. Evelyn closed her eyes. A single tear slipped down her cheek, not of sorrow, but of release. Andrew bowed his head as the guards led him away in cuffs. As he passed Lydia, he muttered under his breath, Andrew, you won. Happy now? Lydia, meeting his gaze, voice calm. No, Andrew, I didn't win. I just stopped losing. When the courtroom doors closed behind him, Lydia stepped outside. The midday light poured down the courthouse steps, bright, warm, vast, like the sky after a long storm. Evelyn was waiting, holding a steaming cup of coffee. Evelyn, I brought this for you. I knew you'd need it. Lydia, taking it, smiling faintly. Thank you, Mom. Your coffee's always bitter, but comforting. Evelyn, like life, sweetheart. Lydia, soft laugh. At least this time, I got to choose the kind of bitterness I can live with. They sat together on the courthouse steps, surrounded by noise and people, yet for that moment, the world felt still. A breeze drifted through, carrying the scent of jasmine and the distant sound of morning birds, as if everything was beginning anew. The closing narration, warm and reflective, like the quiet echo of a journey completed. Some say justice is a sentence, but for Lydia, justice was awakening, not to punish, but to forgive herself, for loving blindly, for forgetting her own worth. Today, Lydia didn't just reclaim the name Moore, she reclaimed herself, a woman strong, courageous, and free. 6 months after the trial, Charleston was in spring. The city seemed to be wearing a new skin. Rows of magnolia trees bloomed white along the streets. The breeze carried a hint of salt from the sea, and faint music drifted out from a small cafe on the corner. Amid that calm beauty, the Devereux Hall gallery gleamed with light. On the main wall hung a large sign, "Breaking Free" by Lydia Moore. Evelyn stood silently before the glass doors, staring at her daughter's name etched across them. A soft smile touched her lips, the smile of a mother who had watched her child walk through darkness and now stand wholly in the light. Inside, the room was bathed in warm gold. Guests moved slowly among the paintings, each canvas a chapter in Lydia's journey of healing. The first, titled "The Cage," was a storm of black and gray brushstrokes crisscrossed like prison bars, with the faint silhouette of a woman bowing her head in the middle. In the far corner hung unbound the final piece, alive with turquoise and amber hues, portraying a woman standing beneath an open sky, arms outstretched, eyes closed, lips curved in quiet peace. Visitor 1, "It's powerful." She turned her pain into art. Visitor 2, "It feels like we're breaking free with her." Evelyn heard their words and felt her chest tighten with emotion. When Lydia appeared in a simple white dress, her hair loosely tied, her face bright and serene, Evelyn almost didn't recognize her. Not because she looked different, but because for the first time, Lydia was truly herself. "Evelyn, you know, I still remember the day you said you couldn't paint anymore." Lydia, smiling. "I remember too. But it turns out, when you stop trying to forget the pain, when you dare to look it in the eye, the colors come back." Evelyn, "And you brought them back beautifully." They both laughed softly, the kind of laughter that feels like setting down years of weight. The opening reception was warm and intimate. Local reporters filled the room, microphones and cameras circling gently. One journalist approached Lydia for an interview. Reporter, "The title, Breaking Free, is it about leaving your former marriage?" Lydia, "Partly, but not just that. It's about breaking out of every limitation, the ones imposed by others, and the ones we build ourselves." Reporter, "Would you say art saved you?" Lydia, looking straight into the camera, her voice gentle but sure. "No, art didn't save me. It helped me save myself." The room fell silent for a few seconds, and then came a long, heartfelt round of applause. As the exhibition neared its close, a tall, kind-eyed man with graying hair approached her. "Doctor, Marcus Webb. Miss Moore, I'm Marcus Webb, director of the Women Forward Foundation. I'm truly moved by your story and the way you've expressed it." Lydia, shaking his hand, "Thank you." "I just painted what I lived." Marcus, "Exactly. And that's why we'd like to invite you to join our advisory board to help other women who are being controlled financially or emotionally, just as you once were." Lydia froze for a second, then smiled a smile glowing with the quiet strength of someone who had fallen but chose to rise to lift others. "Lydia, I used to be afraid of telling my story, but if it can help someone believe they can find their way out too, then I'm ready." Marcus, warmly, "That's exactly the answer we hoped for." Later, when the crowd had thinned and the gallery was quiet, Lydia and Evelyn walked slowly down the corridor lined with paintings. "Lydia, isn't it strange, Mom? Every piece here comes from a moment I once wanted to forget." Evelyn, "Not strange at all, sweetheart, because you turned them into something that makes others stronger." Lydia, "I don't think I could have done it without you." Evelyn, "No, Lydia, I just lit a small lamp. You're the one who walked out of the dark." They stopped before the painting Light Through Cracks, sunlight spilling through a fracture in an old wall. Lydia, this one's your favorite, isn't it? Evelyn, yes. Because it reminds me that light only finds its way through what's been broken. Lydia gently took her mother's hand. Lydia, I think you were right from the beginning. Real strength isn't revenge. It's getting back up. Lydia, smiling, and continuing to paint. Narration, low, resonant, filled with quiet emotion, like the final words of a long journey. Not everyone gets to begin again, but for those who dare to face their past, rebirth itself becomes a work of art. Lydia is no longer a figure trapped in someone else's painting. She has become the artist of her own life. Charleston, summer. That morning, Lydia sat in a small seaside cafe, her laptop open before her, a steaming cappuccino by her hand. Sunlight filtered through the white curtains, painting her hair in shades of warm gold. On the screen, a blinking title read, Financial Abuse in Marriage, The Invisible Cage. It was a proposal from a New York publishing house. They wanted her to tell her story, not as a sorrowful memoir, but as a book that could help other women recognize their own strength. Editor, on video call. Lydia, your story has a powerful reach, but I don't want a retelling of pain. I want readers to see the rebirth, how you turned destruction into a light for others. Lydia, smiling. I understand. I don't want to write about him anymore. I want to write about freedom. Editor, then write with the very voice he once tried to silence. When the call ended, Lydia leaned back in her chair. She exhaled softly, then began to type her opening lines. Her voice, steady, low, and warm, felt like she was writing to the woman she used to be, the one who never dared to speak. That afternoon, Lydia drove back to her mother's home on Folly Beach. Evelyn was in the garden, watering the plants, her hands covered in soil, her smile as bright as ever. Lydia, getting out of the car. Guess what, Mom? Someone just asked me to write a book. Evelyn, if it's a cookbook, I'm volunteering as the taste tester. Lydia, no, it's about marriage and financial control. Evelyn, oh, sounds less flavorful, but probably full of lessons. They both laughed, then walked together down the narrow path leading to the beach behind the house. The evening sea was calm, the sunset spilling orange and gold across the water like silk. Lydia, you know, I used to be angry at you, Mom, for not saying anything, for investigating behind my back. Evelyn, I know, and I was afraid you'd never forgive me. Lydia, looking out to sea. But if you hadn't done it, I wouldn't have been saved. Evelyn, you didn't need saving. You just needed to see that you were worthy of freedom. They fell silent, listening to the rhythmic hush of the waves. Lydia bent down, picked up a white pebble, and rolled it between her fingers. Lydia, I used to think forgiveness was weakness, but it turns out forgiveness is when you're strong enough not to need resentment anymore. Evelyn, smiling. That's right, and you've grown stronger than I ever was. Lydia, grinning. Don't let me believe that too long, Mom. I learned stubbornness and patience from you, remember? Evelyn, chuckling. If that's a compliment, I'll take it. As the last light of day melted into dusk, they sat together on the old wooden bench facing the sea. Lydia, Mom, were you ever scared when you found out everything? Evelyn, of course, but I was more afraid of letting you live a life built on lies. You can't save someone by closing your eyes. Lydia nodded, her gaze distant, thoughtful. Maybe that's what I want to say in my book, that freedom isn't just about leaving someone. It's about facing your own pain, Evelyn, and naming it so it can't own you anymore. A breeze swept through, carrying the salt of the ocean and the scent of wild grass. Lydia leaned her head gently on her mother's shoulder. Lydia, Mom, I haven't said this enough, but thank you for never giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself. Evelyn, squeezing her hand. I just did what any mother should, reminded you that you deserve love, no matter how many mistakes you make. A few weeks later, Lydia began writing the first chapter of her book. Across the blank page, she typed, "No one notices the chains when they're gilded with promises of love. But one day, when you dare to look closely, you'll see freedom isn't leaving, it's realizing you have the right to choose your own path." She paused, reread the line, then smiled. On the corner of her desk sat a photo of her mother, Evelyn, laughing in the lavender garden. Lydia touched the frame and whispered, "Lydia, softly, I'll write this book for you, Mom. And for every woman who ever believed she only had two choices to endure or to escape, I'll show them there's a third way to rise." That night, Lydia sent the first draft to her publisher. The reply came swiftly. "Lydia, this isn't just a manuscript. It's a map to freedom, and I believe it will reach thousands of women." Lydia read the message, her eyes stinging. Lydia, to herself, quietly, "No more fear, only truth." Narration soft, yet resonant, carrying quiet strength. There are wounds that never vanish. But if we're brave enough to rewrite them, they become reminders that we lived, learned, and overcame. Lydia Moore didn't just tell her story. She rewrote it, reclaiming the voice that fear once stole. And Evelyn, the quiet mother, knew at last. Every act of forgiveness is a kind of rebirth. Early morning in Charleston. Sunlight streamed through the gallery window, spilling across the newest paintings of Lydia Moore, now a painter, author, and inspirational speaker empowering women toward financial and emotional independence. On the wall hung a small sign, handwritten, "New Light Art, Freedom, and Financial Healing." A group of women sat around a round table, notebooks open, listening closely as Lydia spoke. She wasn't dressed in luxury, just a white linen blouse and jeans, yet her presence radiated vitality. Lydia, smiling. "We weren't born to be controlled by wallets or by fear. We were born to choose how we live, how we love, and how we move forward." The room was silent. Then, a young woman raised her hand. "Student, Miss." "Lydia, what if I've already lost everything? How do I start again?" "Lydia, the moment you dare to face the truth, you've already started. Money can be earned back, but when you reclaim your faith in yourself, that becomes your greatest wealth." Applause filled the room. Lydia's voice wasn't that of a polished orator, but of someone who had fallen and survived. When the session ended, Lydia began cleaning the board and noticed Evelyn standing by the doorway, holding a small bouquet of lavender. Lydia, smiling. "Perfect timing, Mom. I just wrapped up the last class." Evelyn, handing her the flowers. "Lavender. So you remember to breathe between your deadlines." Lydia, "And what if I start breathing in a little love, too?" Evelyn raised an eyebrow. Evelyn, "What are you getting at?" Lydia, "Oh, nothing, except that doctor. Thomas Bennett seems rather charming, don't you think?" Evelyn, "Thomas? The widowed sculptor who brings sandwiches to every one of your classes?" Lydia, "Exactly. I think he looks at you more than he looks at his statues." Evelyn, "If he's looking, it's probably to ask for my orchid-watering secrets." Lydia, "And you're blushing because of the sun, right?" Both women burst out laughing, their laughter echoing through the bright, sunlit room. That afternoon, they stopped by a small cafe by the shore. Inside, Dr. Thomas Bennett sat reading, his glasses sliding down his nose. Lydia nudged her mother gently. Lydia, whispering, "There's your chance." Evelyn pretending to scold, "I'm 65, you know." Lydia, "And you look 35 when you smile." "Who said age could stop happiness?" Evelyn approached. Thomas looked up, smiling warmly. Thomas, "Evelyn, I just read your daughter's interview. You two are remarkable." Evelyn, smiling, "Thank you. She's done more than I ever imagined." Thomas, "Maybe because she has a brave mother." A tender silence lingered between them. Lydia, standing at a distance, arched a mischievous eyebrow before pretending to take a phone call, giving them space. Thomas. Lydia mentioned you love classical art. There's an exhibition at the art museum this weekend. If you're free. Evelyn. Are you asking me on a date, Thomas? Thomas, grinning. I prefer to call it two grown-ups who love art, going to look at paintings together. Evelyn, smiling. All right, but fair warning, I only linger over the ones with light. Thomas, perfect. I've been looking for my own light. That evening, Lydia brewed 2 cups of mint tea and brought them out to the porch. Lydia, I saw the way you smiled today, Mom. It was different. And you, my dear, can't hide the light that's already yours. Lydia, we really are 2 women who've mastered survival. Evelyn, not just survival. We learned how to bloom even on broken ground. They clinked their cups together, the steam mingling with the ocean breeze. Evelyn softly, we can bend, but we don't break. Lydia, smiling, like the lavender in your garden, delicate yet unyielding. A few days later, Lydia hosted an outdoor painting workshop for women on Folly Beach. She laughed when she saw Evelyn and Thomas arriving, carrying coffee and pastries. Thomas, may I paint too? Lydia, only if the doctor's not afraid of mistakes. Thomas, joking, I've done heart surgery, Lydia. I think I can handle a crooked line. The group erupted in laughter. Evelyn sat beside him, her gaze soft, serene. Lydia quickly sketched a small drawing, 2 figures side by side, smiling gently beneath the sunset. As the sun dipped lower, Lydia and Evelyn walked along the shoreline, waves brushing their feet. Lydia, Mom, do you think you could ever fall in love again? Evelyn, love doesn't always mean starting over, Lydia. Sometimes it just means opening your heart enough to let new light in. Lydia, like you did for me. Evelyn, and now you're doing it for others. They stopped, watching the horizon. Evelyn, look, Lydia. Even when the sun sets every day, it always returns brighter. People are the same. We were deceived, but never defeated. Evelyn, because truth and love will always be what saves. Narration slow, deep, and warm. After loss, they didn't try to return to who they were. They chose to become someone new. Evelyn learned to believe in tomorrow. Lydia learned to forgive yesterday. And there, by the evening sea, 2 women, mother and daughter, walked side by side, no longer carrying wounds, only the light of freedom and love.